Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for another episode of Fuck, Marry,
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fuck, Marry, Kill podcast. I'm your host, Britt.
And I'm your host, Devika.
This is Devika's episode, so I'll let her take it away.
Yeah, so I'm going to skip the intro like Britt did last week, and we're going to dive straight into it. We're always going to have a description of our show in the show notes. But I'm skipping to what we're drinking.
Oh, we're matching today.
Yeah, hot toddies.
Yep, in honor of Devika's little baby bug that she's still got. She's got the sniffles. I had it last week, actually.
Yeah, something's going around.
Yeah. So I'm honoring her with also a hot toddy, which is definitely going to put me to sleep.
Well, hopefully the story will keep you awake, but this one is a snappier story. So it's not quite, All
right. Hit me with it.
So my subject is medical procedures that are no longer in practice and for good reason.
Oh, God. Oh, okay. Ugh. Am I going to be able to not get queasy through this episode?
I think so, because this is pretty light. I try to keep it light because we've had some really heavy ones.
Okay.
All right. So option one.
Okay.
The milk transfusion.
You know what? You had a quickie with milk and shit, and now you have a milk transfusion.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about
What's happening with you and dairy right now?
Yeah, skinning and dairy. Those are my things.
Okay. Tell me what it is.
All right. So it is quite literally like what it is. It's a blood transfusion, except for instead of blood, it's milk. So I'll tell you how we got there.
Okay.
So prior to the discovery of blood types by a guy named Carl Landensteiner in 1901, and effective methods of avoiding coagulation, so like the clotting and stuff when transfusing blood, human beings who have lost a significant amount of blood were likely not going to make it, right? Like losing blood was pretty rough. But people still did try to substitute blood, and oftentimes that would also lead to the patient's death.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I thought this was going to go very differently.
Yeah. Oh no. So because of that, for a brief time in the late 19th century, so late 1800s, scientists were convinced that milk might be the perfect substitution for lost blood.
Sorry, who thought that?
So I'll get into who the first guys were, but we're going to go back a little bit further, actually a lot of bit further, to the 17th century. The first successful transfusion of blood was performed in the 17th century by a physician named Richard Lauer.
Okay.
So he developed a technique that enabled him to transfer blood without excess coagulation. And he demonstrated it when he bled a dog and then replaced its lost blood with that of a larger mastiff. And the mastiff did die in the process.
Okay, remember when you said you weren't going to do pets dying?
I know, but this one isn't like they're not torturing them in the same way. I know this one it was tough to hear about, but the dog receiving the blood did live, but I'm sure he was like pretty freaking traumatized because he wasn't like sick before. So
okay.
Yeah. The same guy, Lower, he later transfused lamb blood into a mentally ill patient. And the hope was that the lamb, being gentle and calm, would take away the man's insanity.
Okay.
So the man survived and his mental illness went away.
Okay. Did the lamb survive?
I'm totally lying. He did survive, but he was still mentally ill because...
Oh. I was so worried about asking if the lamb was okay. I was like, yeah, his mental illness was gone. Sure it was.
No, the man he did survive, but he was still mentally ill.
Yeah. And the lamb?
They didn't say anything about the lamb, but I don't know. I don't know.
Let's say it lived. Okay.
In 1667, so still 17th century, Jean-Baptiste Denis transfused the blood of a sheep into a 15-year-old boy and a Labrador. A Labrador. Wow. A 15-year-old boy and a laborer, so a worker, both of whom survived. But Dennis and his contemporaries chose not to perform human-to-human transfusions because the process often killed the donor. And this is again because they didn't know about the different blood types and stuff like that. So most likely your body's going to reject that blood.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So despite their initial successes, and that probably was only successful because of very small quantities of blood involved. So that means that the sheep probably lived. Later transfusions made by these physicians didn't go very well. And Dennis in particular became responsible for the death of a Swedish baron and a mentally ill man. So he was trying this on people from different social stratas and stuff like that. But it, for the most part, was not working out.
Okay.
Because of this, these experiments were condemned by the French government, by the Vatican, by a lot of royal families, and research into blood transfusion stopped for almost 150 years.
Wow.
Yeah. The practice had a brief revival in the early 1800s, but the same problems arose. And so they stopped it kind of again for a little bit. But then they started thinking, okay, how do we get around blood and the different characteristics about blood that is causing people to die, like the body rejecting the blood or coagulation? So they decided, don't use blood at all. Use milk.
Milk, la leche.
Yeah, because why not?
Yeah. Did a cow come up with this idea, or like
no? It was a couple Canadians came up with it actually.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, our neighbors to the north. So the first injection of milk into a human took place in Toronto. Love Toronto, by the way, but not for this.
Not the milky Toronto.
Not the milk stuff. Yeah. In 1854 by Dr. James Bovell, which is kind of funny because it sounds sort of like bovine, right?
Right.
Kind of.
Devika still got her mic off of a stand and she's just a pure stand-up comedian today.
Exactly. And Dr. Edwin Hodder, which kind of reminds me of udder. So
udder.
We got bovine and udder kind of going on.
They made this story up.
Yeah, seriously. They were just like, hey, what connects us? Let's. They believed that oily and fatty particles in milk would eventually be transformed into white cells or white blood cells. So like they thought, I don't know. I don't understand the thinking. I don't know if it's like, oh, well, it's white. So
yeah, I mean, nobody knew. I mean, all sciences come from really crazy ideas, honestly.
I mean, I guess you're right. But it's just kind of like, how could they not know that it's not the same white
substance
thing?
Yeah.
Like of all the white, like, yeah. Anyways, so
I mean, imagine
they thought this.
Yeah. Like a pig's heart transplant into humans and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's as wild as that.
But that's still like blood, right? So like I understand the animal blood transfusions too, but milk is just like a totally different. But yeah, I mean, it was the 1800s and they were probably like, shoot, let's try anything, right? So
yeah. Plus Canadians, man. I'm just kidding. I love you, Canada.
Love Canada. All right. So their first patient was a 40-year-old man who they injected with 12 ounces of cow's milk. And the patient responded well to the treatment. They tried again and it was successful. But then the next 5 times they did it, the patient died. So despite these poor outcomes, milk transfusion became a popular method of treating sick people, particularly in North America. A lot of these patients were sick with tuberculosis, and after receiving their blood transfusions, they complained of chest pain, involuntary movements of the eye, and headaches. A few survived, and according to the doctors who were carrying out these procedures, they actually seemed to do better after the treatment. Again, this is the doctors who did the procedure saying that they did better. But most of the people who got milk transfusions, they went into a coma and then they died soon after.
Great. What if some of them just like started mooing and like growing udders?
That would have been something. I hesitate to bring this last part out, but
oh no.
Yeah. Another doctor did an experiment on dogs to see if milk worked for transfusions, but all of them passed away.
Okay.
So for that reason of everybody dying, including the animals that they're testing on, milk transfusions were no longer a thing. And they very quickly became not utilized, thankfully, because they don't work and they kill people. And that's our option number 1.
Okay.
Okay, option number 2, whale hotel.
Okay.
You have no idea where this is going.
Are a bunch of whales going to die in this?
Well, yes.
Are they?
Well, yeah, but that's...
Oh, God.
It's... Yeah. There are whales that die in this, but not exclusively for this purpose. So this was a cure for rheumatism. So we're going back to the 19th century again, and we're going to Australia, where it starts out. So rheumatism, for anyone who doesn't know, is a condition that causes pain and swelling in your joints, especially in your hands, feet, and wrists.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the treatments for this in Australia in the late 19th century was to get into a whale and remain within the carcass of a dead whale at intervals of 20 to 30 hours.
Oh, my God. It's like Moby Dick yourself.
Yeah, well, your head would come out of the blowhole.
Of course it would.
And so you would be able, or like whatever hole they cut into the whale. And supposedly after this, they would be relieved of their rheumatic pain for up to 12 months.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this is how it worked. It was believed that the heat and gases produced by the decomposing whale combined to create a sort of sweatbox environment, relieving the pain of rheumatic disorders. So it's basically you're in like a hot box. It's like being in like a sauna. So of course that like helps with inflammation and stuff, right?
Like not a fun hot box.
Not a fun hot box. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Reports of the cure first appeared in Australian newspapers before spreading quickly in New Zealand, America, and Europe. In 1896, the Dublin Journal of Medicine reported on the cure, and the following year, a well-respected American publication, Medical Record, also devoted an entry to the whale cure.
Mm-hmm.
So all reports of the whale cure practice led to one place, and this is the town of Eden in Twofold Bay in Australia. Eden had been settled since the mid-1800s, and there was a big whaling industry. So that's kind of there was a lot of whaling going on there. So that kind of helped expedite this. There were a lot of theories on the origins of the whale cure. One claims, and this one's just great, the first man to try the cure stumbled upon it, accidentally falling drunk into a carcass, becoming stuck and emerging free of his rheumatism hours later.
I've done that before.
Yeah. You just get drunk and stumble into a whale. Like, come on. Another attributes the first case to that of a well-known businessman who approached a local prominent whaling family to allow him to try the treatment when they next had a whale brought to shore. And then he tried it out and it worked. This is likely untrue as well. The real foundation of the whale cure probably stretches back beyond and before European settlement. So there were indigenous people already living in Twofold Bay. And whales and other sea creatures were strongly featured in their spiritual beliefs. And they were very familiar with beached whales, and they would use all parts of the whale for shelter, for food, for oil, for medicinal and ritual purposes. And they would also do this, immerging themselves under the fat of the whale. And that was supposed to help with rheumatism and other sort of aches and pains.
I wonder if it's just literally like the heat.
Probably, right? Like the heat just being fully encompassed in something. Yeah.
But they thought it had to be a whale.
Yeah. the decline of this came with the decline of whaling around the First World War, but there might have been another reason for why people didn't want to do it. And this is a quote. The after effects are not so pleasant. The patient for a week or so gives off a horrible odor and is abhorrent to man and beast.
Oh.
So I guess it smelled real terrible.
Well, yeah, of course, any dead thing. But were they not supposed to wash themselves after, or if it just like got in there?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how often people were able to wash themselves in Australia
just, like,
in the
in the ocean,
1800s. But yeah, I don't know. In the ocean, just jump in, right?
Yeah,
but I mean, I'm sure probably, and there were a lot of cartoon drawings in the newspapers and stuff, like newspaper clippings, and it had people like in their clothes in there. So I don't know if it's just like, you know, you have limited clothes, so then you go wash yourself off in the ocean, but it's like, that's not coming out right away.
Yeah.
So that is option number 2. The whale hotel or the whale cure. I'm going to take a sip of my hot toddy after that.
You need a sip of that.
All right. The next one. Goat glands.
Okay.
So this is when a doctor named John Richard Brinkley, best known as the notorious goat gland doctor, would take goat glands and implant them into male testes or female ovaries.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
So he inserted goat testicles into the scrotum of human males to increase their virility. And he would also insert goat glands into women to cure a variety of disease, including cancer.
Sorry, when was this again?
This was in the 20th century. So it was like the early 20th century.
Wowzers.
Like 1907.
Okay.
Yeah. So a little bit about this guy, John R. Brinkley. So he was born in the 19th century, 1885, in the rural Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. He was raised in a poor home by his, sorry.
Devika's drunk.
I don't know what I am at this point. I had like a glass of wine and then a couple of sips of this. All right.
It's the hot toddy.
It's the hot toddy. I think maybe I put too much whiskey because like the honey, I can't taste it.
Oops.
As I drink more. Okay.
Oops, I'm cute and I put too much whiskey in things. Oops, I'm Devika.
Daisy. Okay.
She takes another sip. This episode is unhinged.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so John Brinkley.
He grew up in a poor house, right?
He grew up. What I meant to say is that he grew up in a poor home because his uncle and aunt were poor, not like in a poor house.
Like a brewery?
Yeah, not in a brewery. All right, so because both of his parents died in his early childhood, so that'll sober us right up.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So in 1907, at the age of 22, Brinkley created a medical show with his first wife in which they performed song and dance routines while talking about homebrewed tonics. So like selling those. And he learned a lot of key lessons from that experience, including the power of criticizing mainstream doctors as self-interested. So basically telling audiences that like doctors don't care about you. They're just trying to make money. They don't have your best interest at heart. And I know other ways of curing things with my home brewed whatever.
Yeah. But also give me your money. Yeah.
So after a brief period of doing this medicine show, he moved to Chicago and he began studies at the Bennett Medical College. But this was not a real medical college. It was one of a number of eclectic schools. So these are like unaccredited medical schools that trained physicians in the use of botanical remedies. And this is prior to the 1910 Flexner Report, which, by the way, there's a lot of podcasts that have done work with the Flexner Report. It was good in some ways. It was really, really detrimental in other ways. But just a side note to check some of those out. But he didn't have money to pay for his tuition. So he ended up dropping out of the college without a degree and moved around the country for several years, basically fleeing from debt collectors. Yeah. During this time, he worked briefly with goats in a slaughterhouse, and he was fascinated by their apparent immunity to human disease.
Okay.
So eventually, Brinkley did receive a medical degree from a eclectic medical college, the Medical College of Kansas City. Is that Pearl?
Do you hear Pearl? Yeah, sorry. Hold on.
No, it's okay.
Here's a special guest for your animal killing episode.
Hello, Pearl. Oh, baby girl.
She's a
Hi,
fucking
Pearl.
wiener.
Oh, she wanted to be close to you.
Sorry to interrupt your episode.
No, it's okay. If Cannoli was in the room, I would have grabbed her, but she's being a little brat and wanted out. So, okay. So eventually, Brinkley received a medical degree from an eclectic college, but it was the Medical College of Kansas City.
Okay.
And after graduation, Brinkley answered to an advertisement from the town of Milford, Kansas, who was seeking a family physician for that rural community. So he arrives in Milford in 1917, and he begins practicing at the town as the town doctor. And for a while, he was actually really helpful. The Spanish flu reached Milford, and he was taking care of patients, and they seemed to be doing better. But then soon after, his practice veered into like a totally different direction. He was consulted by an elderly farmer who was having trouble fathering another child. Having earlier perceived ghosts as a wellspring of health and virility, Brinkley offered to implant the testes of a goat into the man surgically as a means of restoring his virility. So the farmer was supposedly thrilled with the results of the operation, but it was never really specified as to why. News of this miraculous treatment ran fast throughout Milford. But keep in mind, this was the dude who was doing medical shows around the country, right?
Yeah. Sounds like the old man just wanted bigger balls.
Yeah, maybe he did, but also like maybe nothing happened, right? Like maybe it was all nonsense because this guy's like a total con artist.
Yeah.
So he got a second patient, William Stitsworth, who requested not just the goat gland operation on himself. Again, this is the early 20th century, but implantation of goat ovaries into his wife.
Why?
Because they wanted a kid. And again, supposedly within a year, the couple birthed a son, fittingly named Billy.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
So again, it's like, how much of this is true? We don't actually know because this guy was such a con artist.
What if she gave birth to a goat?
Yeah, then we'd have cows and goats all over the place with these medical procedures.
Or like, what's in the Mr. Tumnus was born.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that book, Lion, the Rich, and the Wardrobe. So Brinkley performed the operation on several more patients, reportedly to unanimously positive reviews, which seems super, super incredulous and not true. At the height of his practice, he charged $750. This is over $10,000 today for each procedure. Hey. So then, of course, people started getting sick and controversy ensued. And he started being investigated in the 1920s and 1930s. The state of Kansas revoked his license and the federal government shut down his radio station in Kansas. Oh, I didn't mention this. So he did have a radio station. He also was like running for mayor. Like he was becoming this really big public figure. And that's why I just don't believe a lot of these positive reports because he's just tooting his own horn. Like he's really pushing this. And he was a big showman. Like a lot of people really liked him. He did never lose his license to practice medicine in Texas. So he ended up, exactly. He ended up moving there. Yeah. And in 1942, the Texas State Board of Medical Examiners actually sent Brinkley a notice to renew his license. But the notice was returned with a note that Brinkley had died that year. Yeah.
He probably put testicles in himself.
Yeah. No, I doubt that he did. I think he just the amount of popularity he had and the state at that time just not caring enough to do a thorough investigation into what was happening here. I mean, I think that's really what it is. Unsurprisingly, in light of his questionable medical training, frequency of operating while intoxicated and in less than sterile environments caused a lot of patients to suffer from infection, and an undetermined number died.
Oh.
So Brinkley would be sued more than a dozen times for wrongful death between 1930 and 1941.
But he got to continue?
He still continued, yeah.
Oh.
And so, and this is again why I think that so much of what he did was just like him, because he had this this radio station. He had major newspapers coming and calling, and he would talk about how the wife of his first goat transplantation gave birth to a baby boy.
Yeah.
But this was probably all fictional. Like, I'm guessing that it was all fictional.
Yikes.
At one point, he even tried to go to Hollywood and into California to do some of his operations on folks over there.
But he sounds like a real con artist.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the California Medical Board denied his application for a permanent license to practice medicine, having found his resume, quote unquote, riddled with lies and discrepancies.
Oh, good job, California.
Yeah.
Due diligence.
Yep. So anyways, he got his medical license taken back in Kansas. He was still a pretty large public figure, and he continued to be able to practice in the state of Texas until his death in 1942. And that is the last medical procedure, is goat testy transplants.
Cute. All right.
So Britt, which one of these options would you fuck, marry, or kill?
So we have milk instead of blood, right?
Milk transfusion, the whale cure, and then the goat implants.
Okay. I think the whale cure is hotel or whatever you said. Whale hotel? Is that what it was called?
It's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would marry that one because that is, well, first of all, they weren't necessarily having to kill animals on a regular basis. It sounds like a lot of them were just beached whales that they put themselves into. Am I right?
Well, there was a whaling industry. So
Yeah.
they weren't killing the whales for this reason, but like they were hunting whales. So
yeah, all three of these are like killing animals, which I'm so disappointed in you, Devika.
I know.
So disappointed in you.
I know.
Anyway, I would marry that one because it doesn't seem like there was a risk of dying. You were just like really fucking stinky for a long time after.
For sure.
Just no one wanted to go around you ever again. So we'll marry that one. And then there's the blood transfusion and the goat balls inside of you. Neither one killed every single one of the patients, right? The milk transfusion.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a small amount of milk, they seem to be fine. But I would think that the milk transfusion had a higher mortality rate than the goat one.
Balls. But am I getting a small amount of milk or like a gallon of milk?
Enough that it's up in the air on whether or not you die.
Oh, geez. Okay. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say some weird answer. All right, fine. I guess I would choose the goat balls to marry. I never thought I'd say that sentence in my entire life. Here's why. Less of a chance of dying, possibly. We don't know if he actually performed the surgeries on everyone. He could have been full of shit and lying about it. But we do know there were some deaths too. But that one was more recent, right?
Yeah.
So there's more of a chance of getting medical care that actually would work afterwards to try and fix yourself or save yourself or remove it again or whatever. So I would marry that one and then kill the milk blood bullshit.
Okay. All right. So I agree with you on the whale. That's an obvious marry. Because you're not going to die. It's just a very uncomfortable 20 to 30 hours and a very stinky following week.
Yeah.
think I might marry the milk. Or sorry, not marry. I married the whale. I think I might fuck the milk. I'm not marrying the milk. I'm marrying the whale. What am I saying? I'm
Are
marrying the
you
whale.
okay? We're not doing a whiskey episode ever again.
No, seriously, what's happening? As I take another sip.
Right.
So the reason is, would I want to have it done on me? Like, absolutely not. But it was like a good faith effort to try to move medicine forward. Even though it didn't work. And even though I don't think it was necessarily the smartest thought process. Whereas like this dude is just like a total con artist, like total asshole. He's coming in drunk.
Yeah.
He's performing weird stuff on me. And being a woman, it's not just like in your test, it's like inside of you, right? So it's like, so I'm going to have to kill the goat dude.
Okay.
But I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
That's a solid reason why. I guess I took these more as it was being performed on me.
Totally. And then it's like, what are
just-
the chances of you?
But yeah.
Yeah.
But good point on like it trying to advance medical research and stuff.
Yeah.
But I
There
think we
it
did
is.
learn that you should not put goat balls in people, which is
No,
also advancing
absolutely
medical
not.
research. All right.
No
On that
goat
note, no goat balls, please. All right. We're off to drink the rest of our hot toddies because we barely
Ciao,
survived
everybody.
this episode.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.